Thank you for watching this video on the payment scenarios portion of the regional trainings. The answer and explanation for each scenario is reviewed in this video. For scenario 1, what if you have a student who has other awards or scholarships that don't allow a Cal Grant payment for the term? The question is, what code should you use? For this scenario, you will report the information using the O codes. The O codes are used when a student has a temporary source of outside funding, like a scholarship for a single term or academic year, which reduces their need for that year. When using the O code, you will report the time based on the time that the student is attending school and a dollar amount. If the student has no financial need or chooses not to use his or her Cal Grant award for a partial payment, you will then report $0. When reporting a $0 amount, the student will not use any eligibility on his or her Cal Grant. If a partial payment is reported, even a single dollar, the eligibility will be used based on the time base reported. Scenario 2 asks, what if a payment was reported for a term but needs to be backed out? What payment code should you use? The answer is to use the NS code. In this case, the student did not attend your school for the reported term, or a payment was made in error. This next scenario looks at, what if you report a student's last Cal Grant payment and withdrew the student, but you later determined you need to make an adjustment? The answer is that you should call institution support so that the commission can reinstate the award for you. Once reinstated, you will be able to go into the roster and make the adjustment. In scenario 4, what if a student is not enrolled and you would like to remove the student from the active roster? What code should you use? The answer is that you can use the Not in Attendance code, NA. This feature moves the student's record so you cannot see the student on your roster. You can bring them back to your display roster by entering the code YA. Next, what if a student is enrolled at your school but they are attending less than half time? For this situation, you can use the LH code to indicate the student is a less than half-time student. The commission will notify the student via email that they will not be receiving a payment since they are attending less than half-time. What if a student graduates before the first disbursement date? In this case, you would report SR and post a $0 payment. The commission will then send the student a withdrawal notification. Since they have graduated, they are no longer eligible to receive Cal Grant payments. In scenario 7, if a student is selected for verification and cannot receive their Cal Grant disbursement because they have not provided tax transcripts, what code should you use? At the time you are posting payments and you know for sure that the student is at your school, you can post an FI code or file incomplete. The key point to remember about using the FI code is that it should only be used for a student who you know is in attendance at your school. You will use this code when you are processing payments for students, not at the beginning of the academic year when you are still not sure if the student is here. Once the FI code is reported, you can only change it to another adjustment code. What if a full-time payment has been reported for a student but needs to be adjusted to 3/4 time instead? What code should be used? For this situation, you would use the TT code. The payment amount should automatically adjust to a 3/4 time payment. If it does not, you can manually enter the amount in the adjustment amount field. There is also an HT code, which would indicate the student is attending school half-time. For this scenario, what if another school reported FI? The student is now attending your campus and is eligible for payment, but the FI transaction does not allow you to override it. In this case, you would contact the other school to remove the FI code, and this will allow you to process your transaction. If the school that placed the code is non-responsive, you can contact our school support unit for assistance with removing this code. What if a student is awarded a Cal Grant C but is not enrolled in a technical or vocational program? What code should you use? In this case, you would report the IG ineligible for program type or length code. This will automatically withdraw the student. The next scenario is if at census a student was enrolled full-time and the payment was reported in web grants, but then after census the student's enrollment dropped to three-quarter time. Is a payment adjustment required? And if it is, what code should be used? For this, no code is needed as no payment adjustment is required. Payment is based on the student's enrollment at census. This means the student is entitled to the full-time award amount even though the student dropped classes after the census date. For scenario 12, what if a student was enrolled full-time at census? He subsequently dropped to half-time status and was added to the roster after census. What payment is the student eligible for, and what code should be used? At the time of disbursement, the student was enrolled half-time and therefore is only eligible for a half-time payment. For any extenuating circumstances after census, payment should be based on the student's status at the time of disbursement. This student was enrolled full-time at the start of the term and a full-time payment was reported. Then the student dropped to three-quarter time at census. Is a payment adjustment required, and if so, what code should be used? A payment adjustment will be required to reflect the enrollment status that the student is at the time of census, in this case of three-quarter time. What if a student was enrolled full-time for the fall term but did not appear on the roster until the spring term? Can the student still be paid for fall term, and what code should be used? Yes, the student should be paid according to the number of units they completed during the fall term. This is considered a retroactive payment. What if the student has 16.67% remaining eligibility and is attending half-time for the fall? Should you pay the remaining eligibility in full or just half of the 16.67? What code should you use? In this case, you should pay the student the full 16.67% remaining eligibility and report FT for full time. If you post just a half-time payment for the 8.34% for a student with the 16.67% remaining eligibility, this would prevent the student from fully utilizing their remaining funds because Web Grants does not allow a payment if less than 10% of eligibility is remaining. Therefore, in order to allow a student with limited eligibility to fully utilize the award, report FT so Web Grants will calculate the correct payment amount even though it does not match the attendance level. Please engage with us on social media where we post important updates and deadlines for students and schools. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions, please contact school support by phone or email.